Live from Houston, Texas. Welcome everyone to today's episode of What Makes You Tick. Look, I'm really excited as always that you're here. Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
That's hilarious. That was a kickback. That was a rookie mistake right there. Yeah, look again, live from Houston. Just happy you guys are here and really excited you got to see a blooper. And if you want to put that blooper on something, go right ahead and do it because I know exactly where that came from. So that was pretty cool. That'll be a really interesting. Go ahead here, and I'll be interested to see how that pans out. So, and I'm with the Tech Fest Live guy today, so that kind of sets it up. You know, he's the Tech Fest guy, and we had a tech issue.
Yeah.
Look, but I'm really excited you're here. Look, today I'm having an amazing guest and an exciting conversation with this gentleman. Look, a few notes before we get started. This is an interactive live session. You're encouraged to participate and ask questions. To ask a question, just drop it in the chat. We'll bring any insights that we can to your question and answer. Just we want to drop a comment, We'll use LinkedIn DM in the comment section for the event posting, for any behind the scenes. So look, if there's an issue, just feel free, drop me a note and we'll see what we can do. If you get disconnected from time to time, LinkedIn and some of the other services will do this. Just log off and log back on and we'll be here. We know that you're listening and that we're at a commuting time or you're maybe working. Look, we need everybody. So engage however you can. Even quiet listeners are important to what we're building here. Look, thank you again. Now let's get started. My guest today is a gentleman I've met through a networking group called Cup of Joey. One of the groups has made a big impact on my life and motivated this show. We share a passion in youth and education, and his journey from being a student to passionate about the access and the opportunity to becoming a leader and shaping workspace and education pathway. All of this reflects on the power of trust, clarity, and traction in building something bigger than yourself. He's a great example of what makes you tick, so I'm honored to have him on here. He is the founder and CEO of TechFest Live, a Houston-based nonprofit connecting thousands of middle and high school students every year to technology innovation, a real-world career opportunities, which is huge. Under his leadership, TechFest Live has grown from a grassroots idea into a movement that now partners with major corporations, universities, and school districts around Texas. Beyond his work, which I really admire him for, he remains deeply rooted into his family and community, carrying forward values that guide both his personal life and professional mission. Please welcome my friend and today's guest, Khalil, as we find out what makes him tick. Khalil, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's Monday. I'm here with a good friend of mine, and we're gonna talk about what makes me tick. So I'm honored and excited to have this conversation with you.
No, and I'm honored to share with our guests. So first, get started. Give us some insight. You know, for this show, it's really about trust and clarity and how we can gain traction. But give me some insight or give us our audience some insight into your story.
Yeah, I'll go back all the way, I guess. So, story is Khalil Vinson, founder and CEO of TechFest Live, originally from St. Louis, Missouri, transitioned from St. Louis to Houston at the age of around 6. My father moved our family down here, and I've been here ever since. Went to high school at Cypress Ranch High School on Fry Road. So I'm a Mustang. After graduating high school in 2013, I took my talents to Texas State University to be a Bobcat and decided to take up computer information systems. And yeah, it was challenging. I knew that I wanted to be in tech. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but in high school, I was like, I feel like this technology thing is going to be something. I think that was like right around the Snapchat days or something like that. So it was still like it wasn't all it was right now. And I know technology has been here for a pretty long time, but it wasn't the, no one was talking about it. I feel like in the manner they're talking about it now, but I saw something and I said, hey, I'm going to do this computer information systems thing. Again, yeah, like I said, it was challenging. Coding, I learned quickly, was not my strong suit. So
I
in
did
high
the same.
yeah, so in high school, I have a good memory, so I was able to like really. I probably wasn't retaining the information. I just was memorizing. I quickly learned that doesn't work in college. You can't
Hmm.
just memorize your way to a good grade. And I think a lot of students would understand that. Everyone actually, like, you just can't memorize your way all the way through college. So that was a good learning curve for me to understand what that looked like. But while I was in college, I kind of had an origin story. I started this thing called the Weekend of Welcome Festival at Texas State. Essentially, what that was is I wanted the Texas State students in the local San Marcos community to have more unity together. As you all know, sometimes when you have a smaller university, as it's scaling, as that freshman class increases their attendance every year, the city grows, right? But the city grows from the school, from the university standpoint, right? So we're building farther out into San Marcos, which at a time was the fastest growing city in the nation for about 10
Hmm.
years running. And so there was becoming rifts between the locals and the university students because, of course, these students are kind of bombarding their hometown, right? And so where was the middle ground between that? So I think this was my sophomore going in. I think it was like sophomore year going into junior year, summer. I decided to create this thing called the Weekend of Welcome Festival. I marched down to the mayor's office in San Marcos. Had no business, didn't know what I was doing, but I created a proposal in Word. This is before Chat GPT, so I actually had to create my own
Yeah, yeah.
proposal. I sent that to him. They liked it. I took the same proposal to the assistant to the dean of students office, Miss Kim. I got her to agree to do this Weekend of Welcome Festival. I took Miss Kim and Daniel, the mayor at the time, all the way to Austin at the Domain, and I got Microsoft at the Domain to buy into this Weekend of Welcome Festival. I started promoting and doing all the things, but the one thing I didn't realize is that I still have to raise the money to reserve the parks and recreation. So I did all of this work. I got all these people to sign on, but I couldn't raise the money, and that was my origin story. And from there, I think that was really what really sparked Tech Fest Live. I didn't have the idea then, but that was like the foundation and basis that, hey, like I had already proven that I could, um, get people to be a part of something, build something that was bigger than myself.
Hmm.
And so this was then around like junior year, summer, senior year. I was like, well, we can go to all these technology conferences and expos around the world, but I didn't see anything for a middle school or high school student. So after graduating Tech Fest Live, after graduating from Texas State University, right in that graduation, entering, post graduation, I started Tech Fest Live. So a lot of people don't know my origin story really is hosting that weekend of trying to host that Weekend of Welcome Festival. But it really is the basis of what I use to promote and do what I've done with Tech Fest Live. Randomly going to government offices and telling people, "Hey, I would love to meet with the mayor." Like that's just like kind of like the courage and the I guess the confidence I have in what I'm building. And so I've taken that since college and extended that into my post college career.
Yeah, so we've talked quite often. And when exactly did you go with the Tech Fest Live, or did you start? Do you have a born on date?
Yeah, December 2019.
Okay.
When Because I remember I didn't know who to call. Like I'll talk to my parents, about this, my mother, father, but like I called my friend Billy. Billy was at the University of Houston, and at the Wolf Center's entrepreneurship program. He's like a couple grades older than me, but I was like, I don't know who else to call about this, but I knew to call Billy
Right.
because Billy just was a good soundboarding for me, and so I told him about the idea, and so like we went back and forth, just kind of like really, really more me just doing a brain dump about
Right.
Tech Fest Live, and I'm using him to kind of like help me think through these thoughts. And then we hosted our very first virtual expo in 2020 because of the pandemic.
No, okay. No, and the pandemic probably helped you set up what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I would say it helped. It also gave me my first lesson in entrepreneurship and pivoting. So actually, Brian, I wanted to do the first annual Tech Fest Live at Discovery Green. Like out the
Yeah.
gate, I wanted it to be an in-person event, how you've seen in the past. I wanted
Uh-huh.
the tents out there. I wanted, the vendors. I was making all these calls. Hey, how much is Discovery Green, etc. And then this thing called the global pandemic came about January, and I was like, oh, that just derailed my entire, like, it really almost crushed me, right? Because you got to think, like, that's my first time trying to do something at this magnitude, right? Of course, I talked about what I did in college, but this was a little bit different. And for a global pandemic to happen, and I'm thinking about doing this this in-person event, I'm like, whoa, like, I can't believe this is happening. And I reached out to a lady by the name of Dawn Dixon. And I just was kind of talking with her through it. And she was like, why are you panicking? Why don't you just pivot and do it online? And like those words of encouragement really, kind of, I guess I would say, got us on the right track to like at least doing the event, right? At least having proof of concept. So yeah, the pandemic, it helped. It definitely helped. I'd say it helped just because from a business side, it made me think as an entrepreneur. All the other stuff, of course, wasn't great, but as far as like having to pivot and figure out a new plan of action, it forced me to do that.
Yeah, and being in education and seeing the kids, there's so many kids that are. I have two questions. One, I'd love your opinion on the because we went to the pandemic and what the kids are coming out now and their engagement into technology. Is that something that's driving, or you're seeing the kids drive towards TechFest Live or kind of a technical entrepreneurship or anything? Are you seeing more kids come your way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Our numbers have scaled pretty good over the course of the last 4.5, 5 years. I think though, just like the students younger than millennials, I think they just had more adaptation to technology as a whole. Yes. I'm the last generation that played outside, believe it or not, right? Like we still rode our bikes, like to know where your friends were all the bikes left in front of the house. And I'm the last generation to really be a part of that. And so, yeah, I just think the younger generation, they were born with technology. We kind of got it in the middle of growing up. I think I had my first phone in middle school.
Yes.
Like the Sidekick came out and the BlackBerry and some of those other things. And so like we still played outside. Like I remember still playing with my friends, my mom saying, hey, make sure you come in before the street lights are on. So like, I think, this is my personal opinion though, I think millennials are that bridge generation because we remember what it was like to kind of, pre-technology in a sense, or at least the phone in your hand, to what we are now. And so I think we still have a good balance of real life and this kind of like technology world that I think the younger generation live in. And so one of my goals is to take what I know is like, yes, technology is great, but like, the phrase touching grass, right? Going outside and still being interactive with humans is still a very much needed piece to just ground yourself in.
No, and it's funny because you're going in the direction I want to go. I'm laughing because I literally had a conversation. One of my former guests, I think he was my second guest on here, Chris Nolan. He and I teach next to each other, and both of us have real world experience out in the business world, and we also have education experience. I've got a lot more than him, but he's been in it a lot more lately. And we were talking about the kids nowadays and how we're seeing and how we can improve. One, there's a lot because of technology. They are reliant on it for a lot of the things. So the group that's a little older than the high schoolers now, the ones that are just coming out of college, are struggling because they're so reliant on it and they're so addicted to it. They're struggling to they don't necessarily know what quote work is and going out and play. And then the younger group is extremely addicted to it. They don't even know what to do. And what we're seeing now, because of the new law in Texas that says you can't have it during the school day, you're seeing kids that are interacting and they go, ninth graders, they're like, oh, what's going on? And they don't know, they're kind of goofy about it. But it's headed in a good direction as long as we keep that. I'm starting to see some parents pull away that phone or limit. That's the one thing parents, and we did as a school system, we didn't do a very good job of limiting that and the access to it, because it becomes something they're relied upon. But my question, I say all of that because one, I see some changes that are going backwards that could save this generation. The route they were going, in my opinion, and several others, is that it was not good. But what I see is AI. And we had a great conversation today about AI. For me, I'm using a lot of AI to write stuff and to read, and I can use it to grade. When you use it, it actually becomes an education tool. I find myself using it and I come across better. But as I'm looking through some of the stuff I write, I'm actually relearning and getting better and more educated. What I see with the kids is that they'll copy and paste it, and they really get out of high school, or they're starting to get out of some classes with a decent grade, but they don't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
How do you see AI impacting this youth group?
Yeah, just had a conversation last week about this topic at a round table. And, essentially the analogy was given. You take a lion out of its natural habitat and you put it in a cage and you feed it, right? It kind of loses the one thing that makes it a lion. It's its ability to hunt. And it's kind of similar to humans, right? We were built to critically think and to process things in a certain way and use emotions and all of that to process. And so if we start to go further than just the mundane task, right? And we start to let the machine do more of the critical thinking for us, then we lose that critical thinking that makes us human, right? So there's a fine line. Like I sometimes use Chat GPT or whatever AI platform out there to I'll help it shape emails, maybe a few LinkedIn posts here and there, or just get my ideas out, proposals or something like that.
Right.
But I actually have gone back and tried to get everything that's out of my brain first, instead of going directly to it, because I'm I am in the same boat of kind of using it because that's what technology does. It makes things more efficient, right? It is more efficient for me to tell
Yes.
ChatGPT to do something and get a response and use that. I'm not disagreeing with that, but for my critical thinking, it is a little bit of a hindrance, right? So either my suggestion, and I want to make sure I answer your question, I think it is removing some of that critical thinking piece from the students, because they're not challenging themselves to put the pieces together. They're just relying on, a prompt, and then it gives you the answer. Now, if you're taking that answer, you're refining it, and you're refining it, and you're refining it, and that's different, right? You're working with the machine.
Yes.
But I think that, we have to find ways to, where it's efficient, use it, because that's what technology is all about. Like if you go through history, technology has been all about making us more efficient, right? The phone used to be this big, and now it's in your hand, right? Or
Yeah, I remember that.
if you watch, the Silicon Cowboys, the story of Compact, right? The PC went portable, but it was still like a suitcase that they were carrying
Right.
around. But now it's you have these very small and sleek laptops, right? So technology is meant to make us more efficient, to do things faster. But I think with ChatGPT, I keep saying that, but with AI, we
Yes.
kind of lose that critical thinking piece. And I think that's the most important as humans, is to not lose the critical thinking aspect of our existence.
No, well said. I think that's a good point, and that's what I was looking for. I love that analogy, and it's great that you're giving us some insight to some of the things that you're hearing. I just see it in my class every day, and like when you use it for an educational tool or something to learn from, it's a great tool. When you use it to become more efficient, it's a great tool. But we still have to be able to teach each other how to do that. And if we just show it to you and go, hey, go, my son, look, I'm going to brag on my 19-year-old. He and I he got stuck. And I talked to him and I said, hey, why don't you do this? Just put in GPT or whichever one you're using and create a business plan. He's starting his own pressure washing business, and he's gone from here to College Station, and he's struggled because it's a different environment. And he's having to adapt and learn what he needs to do as an entrepreneur. And he created the business plan. I talked to him the next day. Like I talked to him that morning and I talked to him the next evening. Yeah. He'd already created it. And he goes, yeah, thanks, Dad. What it did was it helped me to be able to understand what my priorities are. What do I need to focus on right now? And how can I build that? He put it on himself and he had ChatGPT create that for him because he doesn't know, he doesn't have the education. But what he'll learn is how to implement that and what all those parts mean. That's huge.
Yeah.
That gives you a way to learn stuff like that. But if you choose that.
You brought up a great point, and I feel this is similar for me. For me, it's more about the implementation. Like, I will ask ChatGPT to do something that I know that I can do, and it's not because I can't do it. More than likely, it's because I know it's going to type it out faster than me.
Yes.
But I'm more about the implementation, because we both can have the same recipe, but if we don't implement it the way it's supposed to be implemented, we will come out with two different, desserts. And so I think for me, it's really more about the implementation. How do I take what they have said or these suggestions, and then I still have to go in the real world and implement them, right? If I say, hey, build me a pitch deck, well, they only built it. Who's going to sell it? Who's going to talk it? Who's going to be confident in what you're reiterating? So I think that's a very important piece, is that you still have to implement what information you're getting, whether that be if you're asking it to write an email, you still have to know, well, I talked to Bryan yesterday and we had this personal conversation. So I have to know kind of how to implement that personal touch into what I just asked this machine to write.
Right. And it has to be part of you. It has to be you. That's one of the big pieces. So like, I know we've got, I want to move on because we're running out of time. I want to come back to that later on, because all of that is still about trust. It's still about trusting what you've got, who you are. One of the last things we do in the segment, the first segment, is it was talk about a book. The book I want to talk about real quick is one that was really impactful for me. It's called Build the Life You Want, and it's by Arthur Brooks. And it's one of my highly recommended books to read. He paired with Oprah Winfrey, and they used their life's work because they saw people that were happy and unhappy just face to face constantly. And they were like, how can we make this to where we create habits that increase the happiness within our people? So what his idea was, it came from a conversation with his mother-in-law. And at 45, she just kind of stopped waiting for the world to change. And she focused on what she could control. From that, she decided, hey, I want to go to college at 45. And I want to do this. She had a divorce, single mom, all the good, the normal story. But she decided that she wanted to stop waiting. A few of the takeaways that I got, just very quick and simple. First, 3 simple words are: anytime you're looking for happiness, was enjoyment, satisfaction, and we go back to good Joey, purpose. And that helps you to find. Then the other one is that true life satisfaction is rooted in the strength of family bonds, nurturing deep friendships and finding purpose in work, and cultivating a personal faith or philosophy of life. And I think a lot of that, I feel connected to that because I know part of my life was missing that, or it goes back and forth with some of the challenges I've been through. But I also see it in a daily. I see the core family is breaking up, and I see this, so I really related to this book. How about you? I know you've got a book that you're reading right now. I'd love to tell our audience about it.
And actually, I was telling you I was trying to make sure I was thinking about the other one. So I'll mention Make No Small Plan, which is about 4 friends who started an organization called The Summit. I said this book, 1, because I had it on hand, but 2, because it kind of resonates with the story of TechFest Live, of just how, I had an idea and I kind of just went for it with no real blueprint. But I do want to mention 2 other books, if that's okay. So The Future is Faster Than You Think by Peter. Yeah, The Future is Faster Than You Think by Peter Thiel. I believe he was early PayPal. But essentially what that book is just talking about how technology is converging on each other, and the opportunities that we have and what's kind of coming down the pipeline as we look into the future of technology. And that book really kind of got me set on just how fast technology really is, and the speed at which we have to adapt to these different modules. And now it's like, okay, there was the .com boom and all these different things, but now, because those technologies have essentially stacked on top of each other, we're getting them, the adoption of them is coming at a much rapid pace than it usually will. So that book was great. And then the last one was The Compound Interest. I can't remember the author's name, unfortunately, but The Compound Interest is really just about how you keep building up and building up. It's almost like the snowball effect, right? I started with this very small snowball, right, that I can just throw. But now this snowball has turned into its own beast, and I don't have to push it down the hill. It's gaining momentum, and that's kind of our lives, and that's our habits, right? The
Yes.
more we put good habits in, those habits compound interest the same way as bad habits compound interest. So just you're just being cognizant of that.
No, that's awesome. I actually wrote down that book. I want to look. I've heard that one before mentioned. I want to look it up. Like let's do a quick reset. I'm already 15 minutes behind on the reset because we're having a great conversation with Khalil today. Like today is my 15th or my 16th. I can't remember. Podcast, and it's What Makes You Tick, an authentic, relaxed, powerful conversation surrounded by trust, clarity, and traction. Why? To help incorporate your purpose into what you do and the impact of your life and others. How are we going to do this? By sharing business and personal stories that help build the culture of trust, creating clear, impactful message as a leader with the insight of how you can build traction within your life. My guest today, again, is Khalil Vinson with TechFest Live. One of the other ideas that we wanted, our topics we wanted to discuss, like one of the things that I think, and being in education, being through it, is challenges that we face. It's funny because, look, I'm a faith-based man, and I feel like at times two things come up. When you go through a challenge, one, you got to ask the question, God, what are you teaching me? If you don't believe in God, just ask, what am I supposed to learn? Mm-hmm. The other one is you have to go through these, and I feel like some of my challenges I've gone through randomly, just some random stuff, because I see my kids later on going through it, my own kids, my personal kids, or somebody that I'm close to will go through something very similar late. And it's almost like that empathy piece where you have to go through it and you have to make that connection. And I could sit here and talk about different ones, but I'm not here to talk about me. I want to talk about you. A challenge that you're facing right now that you don't really know the answer to, and how trust and clarity can be a big impact on it. Is there something that you're facing that you don't know the answer yet?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm figuring out the answer, but I don't have it all together. I would say, I mean, scaling TechFest Live. I think from the outside, we've built a great model, a great opportunity to create impact, as well as do good business in the community with our partners, sponsors, and of those of that sort. But the challenge is that, as much as the mission is great and tons of people are attracted to the mission, there's still a business side to running an organization, no matter if it's a nonprofit or for-profit organization. So I think for me, that has been, I wouldn't say everything should be a challenge. It's kind of how I look at it. So when I refer to it as a challenge, I don't mean that it's a bad thing, but It's just something that we're growing through, right? And so, yeah, I would say just the scalability, because the first 4 years of this organization, we were only doing a one-day expo. And, I was challenged to, can you show programming from January to December? And so that brought positive change, but it also brought challenges because there's more to do, right? There's more things to juggle. There's more things to delegate. So I always say that, entrepreneurship is really nothing more than just a mirror in front of you every day. Right. And it's really about the person that you're becoming and less about the business that you're building once you build it, right? Like once you hit that stride, okay, you built it, you have end users or whatever that looks like. Now it's really about that person building it and the person that you become. So yeah, that's kind of a challenge that I would say right now is just daily figuring out how to continue to scale this organization to create more positive impact.
Right. Okay. So to build on that, what does a day or TechFest Live? So if I've got we talked about, I'm in Klein ISD. If I want to connect Klein ISD to you and I talk to them and, hey, look, this is something you need to do. This is something you need to put on, because the TechFest, the age of the kids that we have and the amount of technology they use, it's something that they can utilize for their career.
Yeah.
What would I tell them that a day of a TechFest, or what would TechFest look like?
Yeah. So TechFest Live, the organization, has a few pillar programs. Most people know us for our flagship annual TechFest Live Expo that we host every year. Last year was at the University of Houston. for about 2,200 middle school and high school students. Next year we'll be hosting the 6th annual Tech Fest Expo in the fall. So that's one way that you can get involved in our programming. We started an event this year called STEM Go Pro Day, which we hosted with the Houston Rockets and the Houston Dynamo. So having students be a part of that event, which will happen June 26th of next year. And then also we became Choice Partners vendors. So Choice Partners is a national cooperative organization underneath Harris County Department of Education. And so with this Choice Partners seal, we're able to procure services for ISDs like Klein ISD. And so let's say, hey, it's not necessarily out of school time, but it's in school time. Tech Fest Live can now go directly to Klein ISD, whether that's a middle school or high school, and we can bring the Tech Fest Live programming to your school directly. Whether that be us hosting workshops on AI on school campus, whether that is bringing speaker panels to Klein ISD or other ISDs, or whether that's coming up with a compilation of different initiatives that we can bring, like I said, directly to campus. Those are some of the ways that you can kind of get involved with us, and would encourage anyone to do a discovery call with myself and my team just to figure out what value we can add. What are the needs that your campuses are seeing? What are the needs that you feel like your students need, and how we can best bring our partners along with us to fulfill those needs for them.
Okay. Yeah, I want to know more offline. We'll make sure that we get aligned so I can really pitch what you've got, because I think what we're doing, and looking at the kids this year, they need something. And one of my goals is and I want to be persistent. One of my long-term goals is to be able to find a way to put in purpose into our schools so that when they get to middle school and high school, that they understand their purpose. And if they want to be in tech industry, or if they want a job, they have an avenue to find those mentors that help them get. Because for me, I think one of the things that I see, and one of the things I've struggled with, one of the things that I've seen kids, including my own, struggle with, is they think they have an idea of what something is, but then they get in there and they go, oh, wait a second. After a day of doing this sucks. I don't want to do this. How do I implement it? And two, I think the mentorship, because you do have a mentorship program, yes?
Yeah, so we started our student ambassador program maybe about 3 weeks ago, and so we're getting that off the ground. We have a lot of things moving currently, but yes, we do have that student ambassador program that we really want to flush out and build out a little bit more as we enter Q4. But yes.
No, same thing. I think that's huge, and I think that could be big for a lot of our students, and especially high school moving forward, because then it gives them that idea. Houston's not known as a tech industry, but there's enough here to where it possibly could be. And this brings me up to one of the things I love to talk about is persistence, and you're the model of persistence because you had this idea, and you've been very persistent in what you're doing. Mindset. How do you keep a mindset? Like, I coach athletes, and athletes being able to focus on their mindset is huge. You get up to a plate and you have an 0 for 3 game where you struck out 3 times, and then you're standing at the plate with the winning run at second base. How do you get your mindset correct? Where you're looking at something, being persistent, consistently practicing and building that up to achieve your goal is important. How has mindset and persistency within your goal helped you, whether it's your business or in your personal life?
Yeah, I know this is not for everyone, but my foundation was built on sports. I played basketball in high school, middle school, and I played the AAU circuit. I almost went to school to play baskball. So
could you dunk?
Maybe like on Tuesdays. On Tuesdays I could dunk, but like any other day, I was a rim grab. I could grab the rim, but I couldn't. Tuesdays you might get a dunk out of me.
I was a catcher, so I couldn't even touch the net.
I would say that foundation, just personally, that sports foundation definitely helped mindset. But I would just say honestly, like there was a borderline, almost delusion, right? Like healthy delusion, I would say, because I had to really believe in myself when maybe not everyone else believed in that, right? And so the reason why I say healthy delusion is because it was built on facts, right? It was built on soundboarding. It was built on, hey, Bryan, like I'm thinking of starting TechFest Live. What do you think? Or hey, Billy, or hey, this person, hey, Impact Hub Houston, I'm thinking about starting this organization. What do you think? Right. So it wasn't just like, I just have this idea all to myself. I'm not asking anyone about it. It's just some people operate like that. But I did some soundboarding with some folks, and I was able to like get some good feedback. But as far as mindset, I mean, I didn't play football, but you kind of just got to stand in the pocket. You know, like everything is coming around you. The blitz is coming, and you see it, but you kind of just really got to stand in there and be willing to take the hits that life throws at you. And I think that is when you really, you know, find yourself. I think I built up that mindset because, you know, I failed essentially at hosting the Weekend of Welcome Festival. I didn't do that event. Like it did not happen. And I had Microsoft write me a whole one pager. I had the assistant to the dean of students on my side. I had the mayor on my side. And I didn't make it, but I kept going. Right. So I think personal challenges, personal stories are different from everyone. Not everyone's going to have a foundation of sports, this, that, and the third. But I just think from a mindset perspective, you really have to believe in in the product that you're putting out, and you have to see you do have to see a way forward. And sometimes not everyone sees that. I am a faith-based individual, and so like God gave me the vision, right? He didn't give it to Bryan. He didn't give it to this person or that person. He gave it to me. And so I just had to I had to have trust and clarity that this vision was given to me. And through that, the traction belt, or it was built, right? Through those kind of three things.
Look, the whole trust piece, you know, you brought up the faith piece. I think for a lot of things that are going on in the world right now, and again, I had this conversation today. I've had it before several times. I think for our persistence and for our mindset, whether you're a believer or not, whether you have a strong faith or you don't, whether it's in our religion or in a different religion, there's enough out there that it's a good word. And it's that word that helps you create the mindset, and that mindset helps you to create the path and the persistency we talked about. And it helps you to overcome the goals that you need. I mean, crap. I remember, you know, shoot, there's so many instances. Look, being around athletics, the growth that I've gotten out of it has been amazing. But it wasn't until, when I lost our business, when our business that we tried to build failed, and I've gone through a lot of different changes, my mindset, it challenged my mindset. I woke up this morning with a challenged mindset. But it's one of those things where I have to find a way, even if it's on a day where it's a bad day, you look up to God and go, what am I supposed to learn? What are you teaching me? Talk to me. Or it's one of those days where I'm in a really good, and you go, thank you for what I have. And you look at that mindset and you keep that mindset going. I'm the same way. I learned that from athletics, and it was huge from athletics. And it's one of those things, but what about a change? Like, even you can get in a good mindset, and then there's a positive or something negative happens that actually changes it to even better mindset. Have you ever had that happen before? Personally?
Yeah, personally
or professional, doesn't matter.
I feel like my personal is my professional right now, so it all blends at this point. Yeah, I had to postpone the 6th annual expo this year, and I had to make that decision 2 weeks ago. And it was a tough decision because I've never canceled my expo. We've been doing this the last 5 years, right? So this is going to be the 6th one. And that was a tough decision, but the outcome that came on the other side was that, hey, you're protecting your brand. You're making sure that you show up in excellence, that you want to deliver a valuable, clean product to, you know, your end users, the students, the parents, the educators, the sponsors, the speakers, everyone. So although was it unfortunate, frustrating? Yes. But the positive is that we get another swing at it, right? We didn't, you know, damage the brand by not having an event that everyone is familiar with us putting together.
Yes.
And again, I get a whole nother runway to do it again. And I kind of know this dance. I've been doing the dance for about 5 years now. So I know the dance, and I'm just going to go into 2026 with that confidence. So yeah, I think also personally with that, again, I hate that we had to postpone it,
Right.
but I have not taken a break from an expo in 5 years, or it would have been 6 years, right? I guess you could still say 6 because we were only 2 months away. And so this gives Khalil some mental health break, which I know I desperately needed. I tend to have the mindset that like, hey, okay, I'll be 31 in January. Like, there's no time for me to be sitting around not doing this, because I have time, right? I'm no kids, no wife or anything like that. So like I have the time to like go full force with Tech Fest Live, but I'm not as gracious with myself sometimes. So I think this was also a lesson that, hey, you need to give yourself some grace, because you really don't have much to prove. You've done a great job. You're making an impact on students. I think to date, we've probably impacted around 5,000, maybe 5,500 students. Like, we've done amazing, right? So like, it's okay to take some time off. Not that we're not still working, but take that break, take that mental break. And I don't think any of our listeners on the podcast or anyone that sees this on LinkedIn would think that we have not been, doing our job or making impact. So I think sometimes you got to kind of listen to, what the universe is saying, and take it as a sign. But again, Bryan, I could have not made that decision, right? I could have said, no, like, this is what we do. Like, let's just push through. Who cares? Like whatever the challenge is, but like, I was really just proud of myself that I did not make that decision, because I just don't think the best product would have been put out, and it would have been in our favor to do that. So I'm glad I listened to myself for once, and decided to postpone so that we can come back 2026 with a better programming for everyone.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I saw a post today that said, doesn't mean you're not a kind person just to say no. And sometimes you have to say no to really save the brand. Yeah. And I think a lot of people ruin the brand because of that. So yeah, absolutely admire. Like, let me do a quick reset real quick. I'm already, we've talked so much. We've got about 10 minutes left in this show. Thank you for joining the podcast. What makes you tick? Khalil and I are having an authentic, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in. I'd love the engagement on the chat or any LinkedIn DMs. And I know there's a lot of y'all that are going to watch this post live. When you get a chance, please send a message. We'd love to connect. If you want to know more about Khalil and what he's trying to build, please reach out to me or him, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Look, so far, Khalil, we've got about 10 minutes left. What is one takeaway that you find impactful so far in our conversation?
I think what's been impactful is just connecting. It's just, for me, always bringing it back to the students, right? Just like thinking of how we can build this better for them, because they are the next generation. And I think also just the reflection, being able to like sit and reflect with you about those trust, clarity, and traction, and how I'm just thinking in my head, like, how do I continue to implement those things? How do I not only just say the things to the listeners, but make sure that in my daily, like, this is not just me saying it just because I'm on the podcast with Bryan, right? This is like, these are lived. I want these to be lived experiences. I want these to be things that I'm not just saying, but I'm implementing on a daily. So I think it's also just the reinforcement of, when I wouldn't say you forced me to have this conversation, but when you're having these conversations, right, you want to make sure that like you're staying true to what you're saying, right? So it's also a good gauge for me to like, okay, yeah, like I'm very confident in saying these things, but hey, make sure that like you are still implementing these things when the cameras are off. So I think it's just been a good mental clarity, for me, honestly, to just kind of talk freely. Have a little bit more of a personal conversation. I know we're still talking business, but have a little bit more of a personal conversation and share stories. And also, I think one of the most impactful things is just showing that I should kind of talk about the personal side a little bit more. I think sometimes we get caught up in the business of things, right? And we want to keep it all professional, but sometimes people want to hear the stuff that you're actually going through. So I appreciate your time and being a part of this.
No, it's funny because one of the biggest posts I've ever made. It's funny you say that. One of the most followed, most responded posts I ever made was about my divorce on LinkedIn. People want to know because those are the things that challenge us, and those are the negative events that we're talking about that create a different a change in our mindset, that create resiliency, and can create a positive life change if you let it. And it's kind of ironic because some of this that happens to us in the moment, we go, "Oh, what's going on?" But it makes us change personally, which can affect us professionally in a positive manner later on. One of the things, and it's funny because I'm listening to you talk, one of my biggest focuses lately in class is we need a better way. And I'll bring up his name, Charlie Kirk, who recently passed away. I didn't know who the guy was until he passed away. And through that, I've learned a lot of different things, and he's challenged me to look at life differently. But it's not, and it's part of whether I agree with him or don't agree with him or like him, it doesn't matter. What it did was solidify one of my biggest focuses lately was perspective. You have a different perspective than I do. Somebody else has a different perspective than I do. And if all I do is work about what I see, then all I see is here. But yet, if I can listen to you and we can have a conversation and go back and forth, whether we're bantering or we're learning from each other, it doesn't matter. But if I can turn around and look through your eyes, I see life completely different. That gives me an opportunity to learn, and that gives me that opportunity to grow. That's how we keep growing, is if we look at other people's perspective and understand that we're not the smartest person in the room, and we may never be. And sometimes even when we are, we should feel like we're not. But looking at a perspective and understanding the perspective of what you said with being able to back up and take TechFest Live off of this year may give you that different perspective that lets you take the bigger steps next. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Look,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I want to stay on track.
Okay. Look, one of the things, we're getting close to the end here, but one of the two biggest things that I end with, first of all, is you've been around the youth and you want to inspire the youth. And what is, and this can be personal. It doesn't have to be about TechFest Live. You can pause and think about this, but what's the biggest advice that you would give somebody that is chasing their dreams and being able to turn it into reality?
It's not supposed to be easy. Like, before you start, imagine all the things that can go wrong, right? And be okay with that. I think that's one of the hardest things. I think sometimes we're not okay with things going wrong. I could honestly say this. It's not too much money in the world that you could pay me to not go through what I've gone through with the journey of TechFest Live and just how I built this. Because if I did not go through those things, I would learn those lessons at a very critical point in business for us, and the impact wouldn't be the same. So let's say we were able to raise the dollars that we need, and we were able to build up this to a big, large scale nonprofit early. Like, let's say that happened year 2, year 3, I would not have learned all these very critical and important lessons on what not to do and how to act and how to do this, that, and the third. And it can spoil you sometimes when you get success early. And so I'm grateful that I've had to grind my teeth and get some cuts and things along the way, because those are really what makes you a sound human. I'm not going to even talk about business. Just what makes you a sound human is just going through the motions, getting those scabs, bumping your head, failing. Like, I mean, who are we without those things? And I think that, it's just, that would be my encouragement, is that, like, look at those as they're really notches on your belt. Like, I don't want to say how many, if you can, it's not about how many losses you can, tally up.
It's what do you get from that loss? What are you taking from that?
Yeah, it's what do you take? That's really, it's not about the loss. It's about what did you do after the loss. Everyone's going to lose. the richest people in the world, the most successful people that however you deem success, they have all lost in some way, some more public or private than others, but everyone's lost. And it's not about losing. It's about what do I do when I lose? And your loss is going to look different than a lot of different people's. Some people's loss is minute. Some people's loss is grand. But what do you do once you lose? Like that should be the most important question you ask yourself. Not about if I lose, but what do you do after you lose? And also the winning too. I think sometimes what do you do when you get a win? Because you can get a win and not set yourself up for the next win, right? You can get a win and actually like fail because you got a win and you didn't know how to handle that win. So I guess in short, entrepreneurship is a dangerous, scary, beautiful, impactful journey.
Yes.
Proceed with caution, but also proceed with confidence. And you're not supposed to have all the answers, but you're also not supposed to sit back and wait on the answers to come to you. So it's very contradicting. Like it's very contradicting. It is all those things. And I'm saying that on purpose because you should know that. I think like the kind of like not being honest with students about what entrepreneurship is like is a little dangerous because like, yes, I can have you start a lemonade stand. And that's a very good basic understanding of starting a business. But when it becomes personal, and I think that's the tough part, when your personal life, whether that's family, whether that's a spouse, or like when that personal life starts to eat at your dreams, that's when the rubber meets the road and stuff gets real. So yeah, again, I contradicted myself on purpose because that is kind of what entrepreneurship is, or has been for me at least. It's been this like yes, I do it, no, I don't. Like it's a lovely journey to say the least.
No, and I've been through it. It's funny because I love that, and I love what you're saying. It creates. You have to go through those losses because they teach you what you need to teach. And I think my generation has done a poor job of trying to protect our kids, and like I'm not going to do that to my kids kind of conversation. I don't think it's done. I think it's done them a disservice. And one of the phrases I've picked up recently is, and I'll claim it as my own. It's like when you go through a breakup and somebody breaks up with you and you're devastated. Well, you can look at it like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And you can be devastated on the inside, which is something like you have the losses as an entrepreneur. Or you can look at it and go, wait a second, that person was keeping me away from the husband or the wife I'm supposed to be with. So I need to look at it in that manner. And this has opened up the next avenue to where I'm supposed to go. Look, we've got about a minute or so before I want to wrap up. But the one thing I want to finish with is your advice to the younger generation on the importance of trust and clarity in our lives.
Yeah, trust is the currency. Without trust, you don't have much, right? And so to get your footing in anywhere, people have to be able to trust you. Because once they trust you, they want to do business with you. When they want to do business with you, they want to be friends with you. And that's business and personal, right? Your name being good out here is very important. And so trust is the currency. Clarity, right? Surround yourself with individuals who are free thinkers, right? If you surround yourself with a whole bunch of people who think that 1 + 1 is 3, then you'll be singing the same tune as 1 + 1 is 3. Yeah. But if you surround yourself with people who can tell you, well, the different ways to divide to a certain number or multiply to a certain number, subtract or add to a different number, now you have diversity of thought. You're surrounding yourself with a bunch of different people who may be showing you something different, but you have clarity on there's more than one way to get to that number that you're looking for. Hopefully that made sense. And then from a traction standpoint, traction is important because it's really the things that you do that no one else is going to be able to give you credit for. I feel like traction is like when the camera stops showing the runner and he or she is still moving. Like they show them at the beginning of the race and it's all like, look at my friend on TV, they're running, and they show you at the end of the race crossing the finish line. But the traction is created when there's no cameras, there's no pat on the backs, when no one cares if you did what you were supposed to do, if you stayed disciplined for 60 days straight. Like that's where traction is built. and you got to be willing to go without applause or congratulations or anything to really build something formidable.
No, I love that. And it goes well. Look, for me, trust is always the foundation, and it is the purpose. It is the what. So you need to build that trust, and you need to give that trust to people. I don't think we give enough trust. Why do you give that trust? Because once you do, it creates clarity within the situation. People can trust you, or you can find out who that person is. If they break your trust, they tell you who they are. If they build your trust, they tell you who they are. That creates a clarity in the situation, which of course creates attraction within all our lives. Look, please, out there, let's connect. Follow the show and subscribe to my Tick Pulse letter. Khalil, please share your LinkedIn information, or the best way that people in our audience can connect with you if they're interested.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Khalil Vinson. If you can't find the full name, just put TechFest Live at the end and it should pop up. Or you can go directly to the TechFest Live LinkedIn page. You can find us there. Also find us at www.techfestlive.com. As Bryan said, happy to connect with any and everyone who wants to support our mission. If there's a mission that you have out there supporting youth and young adults that TechFest Live can support, we'd be happy to have some new partners on deck. So, yeah, I'm all about youth and young adults and getting the next generation ready for the current digital age that we're in. So please join me.
Yeah, look, connect, send him some information. If you've got some youth and you're a part of a school district or any of that, reach out to Khalil, please. Look, thank you for being my guest today, Khalil, on What Makes You Tick.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Look, let's make an impact in our lives and communities through trust, clarity, and traction. Let's be transitional over transactional. You can find me on LinkedIn and stay connected for future episodes of my conversation. Khalil, it's been amazing, my friend. Everybody out there, connect with him, find him. Join me next week when I'll have one of the original Cup of Joeys that I met, Sean McCoy, and we'll talk more tech as we talk about what makes him tick. Have a fantastic week. See ya.